Brew Strong is brought to you by Blichmann Engineering, home of the Riptide. Visit them online at blichmannengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings, Cretans.
All right. We're back with a special episode of Brew Strong, live from Alibi Ale Works in the lovely Incline Village of Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
And we've got here special guests with us today. I mean, the man, the myth, the legend, who surprisingly didn't cause his business to go bankrupt by sponsoring
Brew Strong.
Brew Strong.
It was a lot of work that kept us afloat.
It's essentially just to keep Brew Strong going. I mean, he has no money for retirement at this point. He's
Right.
pretty much penniless, but he's retiring anyways because, you know, he really can't get anything done now.
I'm going to try to sell homebrew.
He's going to try and sell homebrew. But thanks to him, we have been able to continue Brew Strong going. And then our dear friend, Kevin Drake, owner, founder, Alibi Ale Works. He was the winner of, back in the day, we did. I came up with an idea. I'm like, how about this? Whoever buys, Blichmann systems for this year.
Yeah, it was a top-tier stand.
Yeah, something like that. Then
we'll set it up.
We'll set it up. We'll do a drawing, and whoever wins, John, and myself would go and visit them and brew with them. And that winner happened to be Kevin, and it happened to be not that far from where I live. So John flew up to me, and I don't know how you got there, but you showed up.
I flew in.
You flew in some way to some place.
Yeah, John had made the commitment to buy plane tickets to wherever the winner was.
Yeah.
Right.
And it happened to be Lake Tahoe.
Well, and I think we also offered that the winner could go to Blichmann Engineering.
Oh, that's right.
And we would do the brew there. And Kevin.
You guys didn't give me that option. You said we're coming.
Yeah.
All right.
Tahoe. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Coming to Indiana. We're gonna have nice scenery and
friendlier people, right?
It was great. It was an awesome experience, which is when I found out that Mr. Blichmann was retiring. I'm like, well, let's gather the old crew together again. We'll pee on some hops. We'll fry some sausages on a burner. We'll have some fun. We'll make a
go
special beer.
skateboarding.
Yeah.
Go skateboarding. I'm not much of a skateboarder, but you guys can. It was a blast.
Yeah.
What did you feel? Did you feel like us coming out to you and doing this with you was the little push you needed to open Alibi Ale Works? Or was it in spite of us coming out, you were going to open
with
Alibi
in
Ale?
spite of.
Yeah, it was more spite than anything, I'd say. Yeah.
Like, those idiots.
Yeah, we brewed that killer black IPA, and I thought that was the future.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a good time. Getting to rap with you guys was a ton of fun. Getting to brew was a good time. And, yeah, I'm not going to lie. That being together that day was a little bit of that nudge and that kind of – I think more than anything it, anchored my excitement about brewing and the industry as a whole and the people involved. Mm-hmm. And I just said, man, this is what I want to do. This is a lot more fun than the path I'm on.
Yeah. What were you doing at the time? I forget.
I was doing environmental consulting.
That's right. Okay.
Watershed restoration, planning, design, monitoring work.
Right. Okay.
Very fulfilling, fun in its own right, and part of a small company. But the owner of that company was also nearing retirement. It was at a fork in the road where it was either I basically take over that company and make it my own, or I pivot. It was kind of that time. Mm-hmm. So
any regrets that you didn't pivot that way?
He's pausing.
No,
No. I have no regrets.
no. I went from working in an industry that is, most of our clients are hiring us because they're heavily regulated and required to hire, do environmental protection work or restoration. It wasn't just generally out of the goodness of their hearts they wanted to do this work. Mm-hmm. But now I'm in the most highly regulated industry of all time. I couldn't escape the regulatory world.
Yeah.
But no, we've been able to make a good impact in the community and make some great beer and have a fun time.
How long was it between us coming out to visit you and you starting Alibi Ale Works?
Well, it was 2011 when we brewed in my garage. I'm not sure what time of year.
Or was it late 2010 or something?
It could have been late 2010.
I remember it was near, wasn't it near?
It was sunny and warm. I remember that much.
Yeah.
Well, that happens randomly around
I think
here.
it was spring 2011.
Okay.
Either way, it was like way back in '07.
Right.
So we opened here in December 2014.
So
we began,
another 3
So pretty
years or
quickly. Really?
Yeah. It was winter 2012 that I made the decision, met my co-founder, and we decided to go for it. But it took us about a year and a half of planning and pursuit to make it happen.
Well, so when you started then versus what you're seeing now, what's happened? What's happened to craft beer when you started that probably had you all excited in 2011 about starting a brewery, and then all sorts of stuff has happened. I know I wouldn't be that happy at this point. 2024, it's a rough business now, is it not?
If I let the industry dictate my happiness, we all know where that would
You'd
go.
already be dead.
Yeah. We opened in 2014, and there were no breweries in this area. I shouldn't say none. There were a couple. 50/50 was open in Truckee, and there were 2 extract breweries in South Lake, and that was about it.
Right.
So there was a big opportunity to open a brewery in Tahoe. But, nationally there were like 3,000 breweries, and now there's 10,000.
Yeah.
So that's happened in the short life of Alibi, less than 10 years. All the beer trends. I mean, I was just showing you our 500 milliliter glass bottles we were very proud of and excited to go to market as the 500 milliliter bottle brewery, and that quickly changed. And, our distributor has been purchased, and the distributor landscape's changed, and there's a lot more breweries in the area. But some things stay the same. People still love beer, and we're in an area where people really love beer. A lot of people are on vacation and love to enjoy extra beers.
Yeah, it's a tough business, and one that you have to manage appropriately. You have to make some tough decisions at times, and you need to be able to make some changes and do things differently. Just because you see the customer change, you see the market change, and if you can't do that, you're just going out. You have there's no other way you'd survive.
Got to run it like a business.
It's a business,
not a hobby.
Yeah.
And you can enjoy it, but it's a freaking business. Yeah, it's tough. I'll tell you what, we made a special beer for Blichmann's retirement for the party today. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, I want to hear more about Blichmann's nut juice, as I call it.
Or Blichmann's biscuity.
Well,
Nut juice.
Biscuit nut. We'll be back right after this.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blichmann Engineering has the answer. The Blichmann Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on 2 gorgeous Blichmann Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blichmann Tower of Power temp controller, and make moving around easy with the Blichmann Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy all-grain brewing system. See it today at BlichmannEngineering.com and brew with Blichmann quality on your new Brew Easy.
Back to the 2 guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. I'm here at Alibi Ale Works, a lovely incline village, Lake Tahoe, northern Tahoe.
Right.
All my Johns. I've got my John Palmer. I got my John Blichmann. Last night I had my John Tull. I had, what other Johns do we have? I got a lot of Johns hanging around.
All the Johns you could handle.
I can handle a lot of Johns, but sometimes, a John like you is a lot to handle.
I count for at least 2.5 Johns.
Yeah, you're one big John, that's for sure. Anyways, in honor of our dear friend John Blichmann retiring, which was huge news in February, he retired. We wanted to kind of gather, and we had so much fun when we gathered that previous time. It was just kind of it's a special thing in my memory. I don't know, the dinners we went to and hanging out by the lake, and I just had a blast. I think all of us did. And so we wanted to kind of recreate that before Blichmann goes off and dies somewhere as an old man.
You retire in 2 hours or 2 years later.
You're dead.
You're dead.
Yeah,
pretty much.
There's nothing to keep you alive.
Not much.
Blichmann Engineering was keeping you alive. Oh, well. But I digress. One of the things we wanted to do was make a special beer for this event. And it was, it was pretty much, let's ask John what he wants to do. And he wanted to brew
a classic American Amber.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that was, we were talking a little bit before the show, and the American Amber was really my very first craft beer from kind of a local craft brewery. It was up in Milwaukee at Sprecher Brewing Company. And it just left that big, memorable flavor profile with me. And those were some of the very first homebrews that I brewed. And, I hadn't brewed one in the longest time, and I thought, that would be a great one. Bring it full circle.
That beer left like a flavor residue in your mouth, in your throat.
Yes. Versus
that's what we were attempting to get with your Blichmann's nut juice.
Exactly. It's a very familiar yet comfortable flavor.
Yes, very comfortable.
Lingers just long enough.
Lingering comfortness. That's what we like. And so I'm not sure what the real name of this beer is at this point, but
Blichmann's Biscuit.
Blichmann's Biscuit. I mean, we had the
because Kevin had to put it on the wall.
Blick Ale or something like that. We had a lot of good names.
Blick Beer.
Blick Beer was the one.
There was something like Boys Are Back in Town. Right. There's various names we threw out.
So there were some really crappy names.
Yeah.
But Blichmann's, it'll always be Blichmann's Nut Juice to me. So I think the listening audience, this is a delicious beer. Really, of course, just like all the Alibi Ale Works beers, they got a lineup of 20 beers on tap.
Just about.
And they're all delicious. So we've got Matt, head brewer here at Alibi Ale Works, and he kind of herded the cats. It was like our small distracted children trying to get their lunch order in, and cobbled together a recipe from comments like, let's biscuit the crap out of this, and I want old hops, and I wanted this and I wanted that. what did you come up with? How did you make this delicious beer?
I'll start out by saying we were watching, Martin and I, our lead brewer Martin, were looking at these emails going back and forth like,
These guys are
Jamil,
colossal
John
idiots.
Blichmann, John Palmer, pillars of the brewing industry, and there's things flying around like Blichmann's nut juice, and we're like, okay, this is how this is going to go.
These
All
are
right,
these are
fair
idiots.
enough.
Yeah.
So pretty much you can do whatever you want, and we'd be happy with it.
Right.
And it also scared the daylights out of me because we started talking about it, and I was like, I don't know if I've ever actually made an American amber ale. We've made every beer under the sun. We're like, all right, we got to nail this. But yeah, just after your guys' recommendations, some pale malt, a couple different types of crystals, some 45, some 77, a little bit of Munich malt, and the classic biscuit malt.
Biscuit the whole crap out of this thing.
7% biscuit in this was
7%
pretty
biscuit.
hefty, but you know what? If you're going to make Blichmann's biscuits, you got to go for it.
What are the percentages on the other malts?
Closer to like 5% of each other one, yeah.
Oh, you give us a rundown. Come on, people need to be. They can do
man.
the math at home.
Yeah, so
but you need to spew
predominantly raw pale malt,
Yeah.
Crystal 45 and 5%, Crystal 77, basically all the way down 5%, and then up to 7% of biscuit. Then into the hops, Magnum Cascade Chinook. We're super proud of our Cascade and Chinook. We use a lot of Cascade that we go up and select up in Washington every year.
Love those.
Yeah, and then like brewing process wise, one of the things we've been doing, we have an old school direct fire kettle, and we can really get the boil raging. So we were super pumped to put like 5 barrels into our 18 barrel kettle and just let that boil for like 15 minutes on just full blast to just develop as much like caramel toffee notes as we could, and then lautered the rest of the wort in. Yeah.
It's a lovely color too.
Oh,
It's like
and brilliant clarity.
15 SRM kind of red amber, deep amber. Really nice.
And what's the IBU? Did you dry hop?
No dry hop.
Your hop.
We're
regimen.
looking at 30, 35 IBUs. Nothing crazy. Just enough to counterbalance the sweetness
Yeah,
that's
perfect
coming out
balance.
of it.
Were the hops pretty much a third of each, or?
Yeah, just about.
Give us some details.
Just enough Magnum at 90 minutes to just make sure bitterness is right where we want
In
it.
the 30s.
And then last 15 minutes of boil, we're throwing in Cascade, and then last 5 minutes of Chinook. 5.5 pounds per in a 15 barrel batch, essentially. So yeah, we're then trying to look back at our brew log here. We ended up shooting a little bit high, so we watered it back a hair, which we were like incredibly nervous after adding water that we were going to like kill our color, because as we're Vorloffing, we're like, God, this beautiful color. And then we had to add water, and so we're like, we got to nail this beer. So we ended up getting awesome color. This ran through our open fermentation vessel, which we did talk a little bit about in the emails. I told you guys, 90% of our one-off beers that we make are running through that open fermentation vessel. It's kind of a nice like holding pattern just to like let primary happen, and then we're sending it to a 20-barrel conical from there. Usually we're trying to catch the last like few, anywhere from like 6 Plato down to like 3 Plato if we have, planning to finish at 2. Let it just rip the rest of the way in the conical, all natural carbonation.
Spunded, huh?
Yeah, spunning the rest of the way.
Nice. Yeah.
And what was the ferment temperature?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, we let it. Nope. Got up to 66. 66 Fahrenheit was kind of like our height. We had jackets set to 66. More and more lately, we've been doing more like 62 to 64 fermentation range. Just, yeah.
And what yeast?
SO4. Good old Fermentus.
Oh.
So trying to get it to dry out a little bit. We knew there, especially when we do this short boil, developing all the caramel as much as we can. it tends to have a much higher finishing gravity. So anytime we can use SO4 to get it down, up to 80-85% attenuation, that's kind of our goal.
Do you guys use a lot of dry yeast?
Yeah, we do. Kind of almost 100% now.
That's becoming more common.
Yeah, just the convenience of it and so on.
Yeah, it's easy to stock. It's easy to keep here. We did get a fresh pitch of liquid yeast from Omega not too long ago, and we're like, I don't even know what to do with this thing right now. But yeah.
Nice. Well, the beer turned out wonderful.
Thank you.
Really, really glad to be able to swallow some of Blichmann's nut juice. But, where else but Alibi Ale Works can you find, a nut juice like this?
Well, I'm very satisfied tasting my nut juice.
Yes. You're pleased, are you not?
I am very pleased. I mean, just that caramel character, the complexity is pretty amazing, and the hop balance is perfect.
Nice.
It finishes
smooth.
with that sweetness that kind of lingers. It's nice.
It's almost got a creaminess in the finish, in the mouthfeel. Good carbonation, not too much. I hate overly carbonated beers. This just got right, just drinks just right.
It's perfect. Well done, guys.
Yeah, great job. Much appreciated. You tackled it from our idiot conversations and turned it into an actual beer. I thought, we'd come and there would be like no liquid to the beer. It'd be like a couple of biscuits stuck to a glass or something. I don't know. Didn't know what to expect. No,
Were you disappointed realizing that we really haven't matured past the age of 12?
It was confidence inspiring. Yeah.
Kevin's the mature one in the crowd.
That's up for debate.
How about you, John? What are you thinking on this beer? You happy
I
with
like
the
it.
result?
I'm the maltiness is nice. The biscuit really comes through. The Munich comes through, and as you say, the melanoidin development is really nice. Nice complex maltiness. I'm kind of looking for a little more residual sweetness, maybe as a potential improvement. I don't know. To the recipe, maybe like touch more caramel. Hard to say. That could be just personal preference. But this beer is very well balanced, and the dry finish really makes it, very drinkable.
I could drink a lot of this beer.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I like
probably
about
will.
amber ales.
I'm getting the beer for free. I'm going to get loaded.
Yeah. Those amber ales, I just love them because they're full of flavor, but they finish dry, and you definitely want to drink more than one.
Yeah. The dryness in this reminds me of a brown ale. The way that finish, that malty, dry biscuit character comes out. It reminds me of a brown ale as well, as the amber.
You get a nice sweetness up front.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Then it just malingers into dryness.
Mm-hmm. That would have been a good name, John Malingering.
The malingerer.
Did you just make that word up, malingering?
Malingering? No.
It's been around.
That's a word.
It's been associated with it for years.
I write books,
More than one?
Yes. And I've never used malinger in there at all. But now I'm going to make sure I do.
Yes. Well, we can definitely tell that the equipment had proper cleanliness.
Cleanliness? Yes.
Yeah,
is that a word?
Yeah, it's close to malignancy or whatever you said.
A malingerer.
A malingerer. Yeah, it's right next to that in the made-up word dictionary.
All right. What do you want to bet? The malingerer is a word. Come on. All right. We will Google that later. And
we will.
We'll prove. Are you guys Googling it? Later I meant like right now. You got to do something for the show. Prove to this guy that malingerer is a word.
Yeah. We don't have any signal up here in Tahoe, so.
That's right. People don't know things up here because there's no network signal. Yes. All right. Let's do this. Let's take another short break. When we come back, we'll have more of Blichmann's retirement, his nut juice, the wonderful beers of Alibi Ale Works, and also our dear John Palmer right after this.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're enjoying. We're having some good laughs during the break, talking about how stupid Blichmann was to sponsor the show.
Agreed.
for so long. All right, we're having a little party here. After we finish the show, where everybody's welcome to Alibi Ale Works in Incline Village, and we're going to have Blichmann's nut juice on, and then there's special food things to go along with it. Is that right?
Yeah. We were told to be prepared to make some food, and Martin and myself were always. Martin was also a chef for Alibi at one point, and I love cooking. Nice. Kevin loves cooking.
I love eating.
And as we start talking more and more about Blichmann's biscuity nut juice, however we want to call it, we're like, well, I gotta make some biscuits. Luckily, our taproom manager here at our barrel house used to be a baker, so she is going to be making a whole bunch of biscuits. Martin and myself also are in close contact with some of the farmers that pick up the grain from the brewery, and we try to stay as closely connected to our food as we can whenever possible. Mm-hmm. And we ended up one day, he's like, you guys know how to butcher? I'm like, no. He's like, you want to learn? Like, okay, cool. We thought he knew how to do it. We ended up just with a YouTube channel at his farm.
And you didn't expect you to be butchering humans.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, we've now done a couple cows. We've done a pig together. And so, yeah, it stocks us up with some meat. Huh. So all of the gravy for said biscuits is with some pork that we butchered. And then as we do, shooting the shit in the brewery, I mentioned to Martin I still have a brisket hanging around.
Ooh.
Started cracking jokes. Well, briskets and biscuits. It'd be rude not to.
Right.
So might have fired up a brisket. We got biscuits. We got gravy, all from local meat that was fed with brewer's grain.
Nice.
Wow.
I'd love to have Matt's brisket juice to go along.
Oh, Lord.
Let's hope when they were butchering, you got all the hair off the brisket.
Yeah, right. Especially the stubbly hairs. Yeah. All right. Where were we going? What's happening? I'm a little confused.
So we did history of the beer.
Yes.
We were going to touch more on John's history and how he got, how we coerced it.
Let's touch John more.
Okay.
About
oh my.
I mean, how did you get started in Blichmann Engineering? How did that whole company come about? Because you were an engineer with Caterpillar,
right?
A very nice job, by the way.
Yep.
And then
great company.
You decided, I'm going to chuck all that and start making kettles for homebrewers.
Well, I started homebrewing last century.
You look like it.
92 was my first, or 93 was my first batch.
Oh,
so been brewing since then, and back then it was almost all concentrated wort boil stovetop extract.
Yeah.
Only the extremists brewed with grain mostly because there's hardly anything available in the homebrew stores.
Yeah.
But so then towards the end of that century, I started grain brewing, and I just thought it was awesome. That's really where I fell in love with the hobby is the grain brewing things. But it was a lot more time and effort than brewing in 5-gallon batches. So I said, well, I want to up to 10. And really there's hardly any equipment being made for specific to the industry. So people would just scrub together whatever they could get, cut the top off of kegs and colanders for, upside down for false bottoms and just different stuff like that. Right. So for me, the bottleneck was a fermenter, because I was tired of dealing with, multiple carboys. Mm-hmm. And so I had this idea that I'm going to buy these conical stainless hoppers. And I want 2 for myself, and then I'll make 3 more, and I'll sell those on this new thing called eBay.
I've heard of it.
Yes. And so I was going to sell those, and that would pay for my 2, which is how I was going to get the whole thing past the wife, which for the most part worked. But our good friend Anita Johnson down at Great Fermentations, who's the owner of the home brew store, she said, "Have you ever thought about manufacturing and distributing these through the retailers?" And I was like, And that's how it all got started. And after the fermentator was the therminator and the thermometer and the brewmometer and on, and the beer gun, and it just
Why
took
was
off
it
from
not
there.
the beer gunator?
Well, we started running out of room for the
Aiders?
aiders, or coming up with clever names for.
There's lots of aiders
beer
on the
gunator.
internet.
Sounded kind of weird, but
Yeah.
so we branched away from that. We were going to put everything in 500 milliliter bottles, but I knew that wouldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, so you quit working at Cat and became full-time business owner.
That's right.
And
yeah.
to making beer gear to innovate your brew day, and you made a decision last year or early this year. How quickly did you make the decision to give it all up? To stop living this lifestyle
The
of the
dream.
rich and famous, the dream of going around to places like Alibi Ale Works and talking on a podcast that gets digits worth of listeners. Single
It's at least a 1% return on our money.
At least.
At least. I actually kind of have always had that, eventually I'm going to sell the business. I didn't, my daughters, they
Didn't
were
want
never into the beer thing.
Yep.
They went into profitable industries. And so I knew they weren't going to take it over. And so my VP, Drew Barnes, great guy, great with people, very out-of-the-box thinker.
So completely the opposite of you.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
I come up with great ideas and expect other people to implement them. Wait, I just described you. That's why we're such good friends.
Yes.
Birds of a feather.
Yes.
So, we just kind of knew they'd be selling, and I just gave more and more of the responsibility of the business over to Drew, and now Drew is the happy owner of Blichmann Engineering, and
There you go.
now I'm just doing the fun stuff. I'm there to help with design reviews and creative marketing stuff, and anywhere where I can help out. And it's
So if
just a lot of
somebody
fun
wants
stuff.
to complain about something, like people do on the internet, who do they complain to? Are they still complaining to you, or are they complaining to Drew now?
I always had Drew get the complaints
Okay.
because
Excellent.
he's so much better at it.
Yes. He cares about people.
He does.
Yet-
I'm a
yet
thing
again,
guy.
the
I'm an
difference.
engineer.
Yes. Okay. And then if somebody would like to help us keep Brew Strong sponsored by Blichmann Engineering, who should people send their emails to?
Drew.
They should address them to Drew
At Blichmann
at Blichmann
Engineering.
Engineering. Or the special, is he getting the special email address you set up only
Feedback.
because I started saying feedback at Blichmann
We still
Engineering?
have that one. Feedback at Blichmann Engineering is still going.
And is Drew checking that? Because that's where
Of
all
course.
our
I think
orders come in.
it goes directly to support at
Yes.
BlichmannEngineering.com.
But again, you can email directly to Drew if you want, Drew at BlichmannEngineering.com. Tell him thank you for sponsoring the show, because he doesn't have to. I mean, once Blichmann was gone, he's like, yeah, I'm getting rid of all the stupid things he did. And I imagine sponsoring the show is one of them. And so...
I had to write it into the contract to force his hand.
There you go. Oh, bless you, my friend. No, just...
500 fake email addresses to write to Drew.
Right? Hey, but all two or three of you listening, you could as well, jump on the email, clickety-click, send Drew an email, tell him thank you for sponsoring the show, because he really doesn't have to. And because he does, the show continues to go and is free. And every once in a while, we do pull out some gems of interesting information. Maybe not today, but I'm telling you, there's other times when the show is worth listening to, and you could learn a few things. I've put more time and effort into that lately.
Hey, they've learned how to brew one of the original classic American beer styles.
There you go. Right,
There we go.
right.
Yeah.
Anything else to add to that? Little hints, numbers, anything?
No, I think as far as the beer goes, it's stellar. And we should do this again next week.
Same bat channel, same bat time. We'll be here.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the questions I had for you, John, was what did you see change in brewing, home brewing, over the last 20 years or whatever it is you were in business?
It has really changed a lot. I mean, from that, extract on the stovetop being the predominant way to brew, to just the varieties of, malt and even extracts that, weren't dusty cans sitting around for forever. The amounts of fresh hops, pelletized hops became more popular.
Yeah.
Before that, it was almost all whole cone hop. But just like it has amazed me, all the different varieties of malts and hops and yeast and everything just became, when the industry started growing, people just kept developing new products, for it. So, I mean, there's a number of other equipment manufacturers that popped up and, yeast companies and, malts were being very much made available. And then processes changed. I was saying, it was very rare to see an all-grain brewer in the early 90s. And now it was very common in the early 2000s. You still had to be a pretty serious home brewer, but most people were doing 10-gallon batches because it was a lot more time consuming. But it was all on 3-vessel systems, and almost all of them were vertical systems, gravity fed, because pumps weren't readily available and people were concerned about contamination in them and things like that. So almost everything was vertical brewing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, one of your first real big products was the Boilermaker kettles, because kettles were kind of hard to come by back then. I mean,
they were restaurant kettles.
Yeah, restaurant kettles, and now we took those and it actually adapted them for brewing specifically, and that's what you did with the with the Boilermakers.
Things like a valve on the bottom, a level gauge, a false bottom, and we had one where we put a ledge in it so that it would just hold the false bottom real tightly. So it was more just things that were designed specifically for the market, just not cobbled and, adapted and DIY'd at home.
Right.
Now, how about the quote unquote all-in-one systems that are coming onto the market? I see more and more people using them. Do you see that as the future of homebrewing? Do you sell more of those than you sell individual kettles?
We do, yeah. And that I think will go on for quite some time. Because we went from vertical brewing, and then everybody was comfortable with
pumps and
whatnot. So then everything started being horizontal, which was just easier to manage. And then we started seeing electric brewing show up. That was another fairly uncommon thing, was electric brewing. People were kind of scared of it, or didn't really understand it, weren't sure of it. So we developed some products for that. Some controllers that were easier to use, heating elements that went in your kettle and weren't in the way. And, so then electric became more popular, and now you don't hear too many people brewing on propane these days. It's all like, Fletch. It's all ball bearings these days.
Right. Yeah. So you see home brewing going all electric. Pretty much. Yeah,
pretty much. And so then the all-in-one systems came up. Pretty much kind of one of the first ones was the Brew Easy, where you, it wasn't
stacked kettles.
Yeah, stacked kettles, and it wasn't the 3 individual vessels. It was a no sparge setup, so you didn't have to do the hot liquor tank and the pumps and the sparging and all that. And then you see some of these, basically they're just giant coffee urns, electric heated coffee urns that have just a basket inside that you'd put the grains, and it just makes it super simple, super straightforward, and so, we've got the Anvil brand that developed a lot of those mid-range products that are super easy to use, durable. So we have the Anvil Foundry. There's Grainfather products. They were one of the first. Spidel, I think, had the very
Right,
first, if
the
I recall.
Braumeisters
Yeah,
or so-
Braumeister, yeah. And those, I think a lot of them are here to stay. We've seen some that have gone up to 10-gallon batch size. We've got one, but predominantly it's 5-gallon batch size. But we're seeing a lot of people moving down to smaller batches, down to that 2 to 3-gallon batch size. A lot of that is people want more to drink more variety at home, but aren't going to aren't going to drink that much of a that many different varieties of 5-gallon batches.
Well, they like the process.
Yeah.
The process is quite enjoyable brewing.
It is. And to me, that's the hobby. I mean, It started as equipment because I just like fiddle farting with gadgets and gizmos. That's how I got into it.
Of course. Yeah.
And a lot of people, that's the fun part of the hobby is the equipment and all that. A lot of others, it's the process or just the, that creative artistic side of the hobby. And that's kind of what's neat about the hobbies. It's kind of all over, and it brings in people from, all walks of life.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we're going to, continue to see some things like that. I think we might possibly start seeing some extract brewing coming back.
Oh, really?
On stovetop, very small batches on stovetop, just because it's easy and fast to do.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the stupid question that gets asked all the time, but I'm actually kind of curious. Do you see AI somehow becoming part of brewing, home brewing, and controlling things or changing things? Or do you see anything like that?
I haven't processed that to that degree, but I do know that people are using AI for recipe creation. They can pretty much describe what, I want.
And then it cuts and pastes a recipe out of Brewing Classic Styles and gives it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just, everything comes right out of it.
Yeah.
It just rearranges it. And it takes, John and Jamil off the recipe and puts their name.
Yeah.
But, so that's kind of a neat technology where you can just, because there's thousands and thousands, millions probably of homebrewing recipes on the web. And, so it can crawl all those and try to create the ideal of this that is kind of like you want it to. So some people that's cool and fun, and other people that kind of takes the whole art out of it.
What about controlling the brew day?
Maybe
I could better intelligence for instead of the freaking PID controllers, which unless you know the magic of PID to get them dialed in to hold the steady temperature, can be a real challenge sometimes.
Yeah, I could definitely see AI doing auto tuning for the temperature controllers. That's one area, or even helping you with dialing in your boil off rates based on wattage input and just kind of taking some more detail to that.
Right.
If I may, I was also even thinking fermentation tracking. People are using like Raspberry Pis and stuff like that. And,
right.
What's the floater thing that goes in your tank?
Tilt.
The tilt.
Yeah.
AI kind of there would be cool too. Raise your temperature when fermentation is slowing down or whatever you might have. Close valves off at a certain Plato and things like that. I could see that for
Makes
sure.
sense, because that way you could have that continuous monitoring and adjustment that unless you're running 24
live feed
7 shifts is harder to maintain.
I think some of those products do have that where you'll tell it when it gets to a certain degree Plato, initiate a diacetyl rest or let it start free rising or that kind of thing.
Yep.
There you go. Right. One of the things we were thinking about was, you've come on the show numerous times and you've answered questions, and sometimes you've gotten a lot of questions from homebrewers, and you've had some stumpers, right? What are the questions that stumped you? And right now, we'll go ahead and knock out those answers for you.
All righty. Well, one
fill you in.
that I think is still stumping us, John, is occasionally on some of the stainless fermenters, we'll have customers that get a virtually unremovable little black ring around the Croisen line.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. And it's never caused any problem or or a problem with the beer or, corrosion issue with the stainless, but it's, and we'll just hear it every once in a blue moon, and it's still just have not figured out where it comes from. And, other than, some good elbow grease, that'll eliminate it.
There's a variety of chemical conversion coats, nickel phosphate, iron, and different conversion coatings that you can put on stainless steel to as a first step in, say, applying paint or applying some other coating to help get adherence. And I wonder if something something organic like that at the Croizon line is high in phosphates or phosphorus and allows that chemical reaction to make like a black
kind
oxide.
of like a bluing?
Yeah, bluing, that kind of thing. Because ironically, just yesterday I got a text from a friend of mine, professional brewer, and said he has a bright tank that had some black patches on the bottom, and he'd run it through CIP and passivation and didn't clear it up. I'm just seeing a picture on a message, but it kind of looked like a carbon deposit.
That's it.
And mechanically, removing it is about the only recourse for something like that. If it's gone through standard caustic and then a repassivation and didn't go away. But as to what it is exactly, I'm not sure. But it could be something like phosphate based, where in other words, a semi-organic compound.
Interesting. Yeah, it probably pops up once or maybe twice a year on our our thing, and it's they're more concerned. Did I do something to it, and is it going to be a problem? And the answer is we don't know, and no, it's not going to be a problem.
Right. Yeah, especially on the homebrew level, it's really never going to be a problem. It's when you can't get access to it, and you're like in a large brewery CIP situation, where it's getting wetted and reused for years continuously, where you develop a potential corrosion issue for something like that. Whereas on homebrew level, even if you're using it once a month, it's just not the corrosion rate's not there to make it a problem.
Great. All right. Any other questions?
Well, one of the big questions we get on feedback is my beer's foaming, and no matter what I do, it just foams. And sometimes it's like when they're just dispensing it into a glass or with our beer gun. Mostly we get the question with the beer gun. And the first thing I do is ask them, what's your carbonation process? And 99% of the time, when they've had that excessive foaming, it's from overcarbonating the beer. And that happens when people are, justifiably so, impatient to drink the beer that they've been working on. So they'll, you can scour the web and you'll find 100 different ways to perfectly carbonate your beer.
Yeah.
And, I'll put it on 30 PSI, shake it for 1 hour, let it sit in the fridge for, 1 day, and then turn it down to, 20 PSI for a day, and then put it down to your thing. And it's always going to be perfect. And, there's just...
And that doesn't take into account line length.
No. And, and it's the whole idea is you've got to get it saturated at the proper volumes at the proper pressure and temperature.
Yeah.
And you just cannot control that if you're exceeding the pressures and or reducing the temperature below that. It's just, it's just like trying to, hit a moving target. Yeah. And, the only surefire way is set it at the temperature and the pressure and leave it for 7 days, maybe 10 days to naturally carbonate.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
it's just,
you can use some of those little gizmos that drop to the bottom with a carbonation stone. And and that will get it done a little bit faster.
A little bit of time. Just
and I like my beers to sit for Mm-hmm. 7 days,
Get
10
some
days.
clarifying. The beer tastes better after a week.
Yeah, the flavors marry.
Yeah.
It just kind of, relaxes. It's just a great way to do that.
Well, I suppose there's some potential for something like diastaticus to be, even if everything's fine to start, the beer sits for a couple of weeks, and diastaticus goes out.
That's
thins
possible.
out the beer and generates just a lot more carbonation.
So we would just tell the people, the next time you brew a batch, just set it and forget it. And if it still does it, call us back. And that's usually the end of the problem. And it's just, it's somewhat, complicated to understand how does carbonation work if you're not, if you've not, understand the physics of, gas saturation in a liquid.
Well, right. I think one other potential problem is, with your beer gun, those come with a long hose,
right. Mm-hmm.
and that's needed to drop all that pressure, so it doesn't foam when it goes in the bottle. You get a nice smooth fill. It's still at full carbonation, but it's not foaming. I wonder if a lot of customers see all this excess hose and cut half of it off, not understanding that line
That's part
balance.
of the magic.
Yeah.
Because CO2, when it's saturated, it likes to stay in solution until you change that.
Yeah.
So if you decrease the pressure, now it wants to go down to the other point. If you increase the temperature, it wants to go to a different point. Or, what I've even had personally happen is my sensor dropped to the bottom of my fridge, and I cooled it way too cold, inadvertently, and all the beer got over-carbonated. And then the other thing is, it's looking for a nucleation point or a thing that starts the disaster, the foaming. And sudden changes in pressure are, things. So through a valve, that's why when you open a tap, you want to open it quickly. Otherwise you're throttling it and it starts that nucleation point. And once you got foam in your glass, it's just going to create more foam because you've got so many nucleation sites. Who thought there would be that much science behind carbonating a beer?
Right.
I think another thing come back to with the Blichmann beer gun too is like advancements in homebrewing, being used for like filling bottles warm and bottle conditioning versus now filling cans and using like October Seamers at home and totally different processes, and change of style and brewing at home. And
it's a good point.
It works for both.
And that product we really developed, it was how do I drop the pressure slowly so I don't have a sudden change in pressure, and how do I eliminate the throttling point of a valve? And that's how we came with the quick acting trigger and the long length of hose that went directly into a straight tube. So there's just really very little change of direction and a very
smooth flow.
Yeah, very smooth flow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, and of course you're known for smooth flow, John.
Well, as I get older, it gets smoother
and flowier. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, listening. Thank you to Kevin Drake, Alibi Ale Works, John Palmer, John Blichmann, Matt Martin, and Justin, who's sitting quietly because there's not another microphone. He just nods, smiles, drinks some beer.
It's probably best that way.
It's best that way. Yeah.
This is my gift to John Blichmann. He's shining up.
All right. Well, and thank you for all the years of support. Thank you for all the years of making creative, wonderful brewing things. As a community, we really appreciate it. We'll never forget you and all that you've done. Hopefully, we can keep getting together. Maybe
Absolutely.
for some fishing or who knows what. Maybe we'll brew a beer together.
Yep. Happy to just give back where the industry's given so much to me. And, I just thank everybody for, all the kind comments over the years and, all the friends I've made. It's going back to HomebrewCon. It's just like going out to meet your friends again.
Yes.
It's been just a super fun industry.
Indeed. It is. And, you help make it that way. So,
Thank you.
Anybody, you're listening, keep in mind that Blichmann Engineering is still technically a sponsor. And if you want it to keep happening, you need to email Drew at Blichmann Engineering or feedback at BlichmannEngineering.com and say, hey, still love the show. Keep sending those $5 checks, Granny. in the for a birthday card, grandma birthday card, $5 check.
Yep.
I imagine that's how it works. I'm not privy to the true workings of the Brewing Network. However, I imagine that's how it works. I think I'm not far off. So there you go. Yeah, Granny keeps sending the $5 checks. Until then, everybody, make sure you keep brewing and brew strong.
Brew strong.